Good evening and thanks for joining us on the Week in Review. I'm Amanda Vinicky. Mayor Brendan Johnson's been in charge for a year now.
The people of Chicago are counting on us to work together, to collaborate to make their lives better every day.
A year in, the mayor's standing by CTA's leader, but aldermen are not.
Frequency and reliability are down all across our CTA system for the L.
Meanwhile, the Chicago Teachers Union and CPS traveled to Springfield.
Our white students, they have access and they have white privilege. Let's be honest about it.
And get an icy reception from Republicans.
The mayor and now his minions in the Chicago Teachers Union that come down here try to bully lawmakers into more money they claim they are being shortchanged is absolutely outrageous.
Police razed Chicago's last pro-Palestinian encampment.
We're going to tell DePaul, this is our campus, our blood, we're not going anywhere.
And a Chicago institution gets a name change. And now to our Week in Review panel. Joining us are Chris Jones from the Chicago Tribune, Elysian also from the Trib, and Rena Amin from Chalkbeat. Joining us from Springfield, Ben Cislinski of the Daily Line. Now let's get right to it, and thanks to each of you for joining us. Let's start with you, Chris. Mayor Johnson, been in office for a year now. How's he doing?
Well, it depends what you want from the mayor of Chicago, I think. If you support a progressive agenda and if you want to see that put into place, then I think you probably quite like the mayor's first year. If you are in the business community, you probably don't like the mayor's first year. I think it just sort of depends. I think he's struggled to make the transition from activist to boss. And I think that it's a very difficult one for him because he believes in these causes, but at the same time, he runs the police force. He has to stand up to the CTU when it comes to negotiations on the part of the city, and that's proving difficult for him. And I haven't seen him yet figure that out, which I think is probably the most pivotal thing he's got to do. I also think that it's going to be sort of the first year and a quarter that matters because we've got the DNC coming, and I think that's going to be a pivotal test of how he does in that really seminal moment for the city.
A very public test there, but let's get to Alice. I want to go to you because you had a sit down with him, and I'm curious about your major takeaways from that discussion. You followed him for more than a year, of course, because of the campaign. What did you take away from that conversation?
Yeah, it sounds like his communication strategy about his successes and setbacks is, as you can see from both my interview and the interviews he gave to multiple outlets, very unapologetic, confident, and kind of just responding to all the critiques by saying this takes time, change takes time, there's 40 years of disinvestment we have to fight back against, and really not a lot of, I guess, like reflection on where he might have made missteps with the migrant crisis or other setbacks in his administration.
That struck me as well. He was so on message. It seemed like some of the same phrases were repeated in every interview or even within interviews over and over. And then you pressed for some reflection. For example, let's take the migrant crisis. What did he say when you asked about, would you have done anything differently? How did it go?
Yeah, he basically said to us, the one thing I wish I could change is that I wish Congress would have done a better job. So kind of deflecting to them. I know he gave another interview to an outlet saying, I wish it was more reported how extremist and right-wing Governor Abbott is. And
but neither a change that he would have
yeah,
made.
Exactly.
Yeah. All sort of outward looking. Is there something to take away from that? I know you're obviously not in these conversations, but is that do you think messaging strategy, or to not have said I made any missteps because nobody wants no politician, nobody in general likes to say, oh, I did something wrong. Is it that, or is it that he really doesn't believe anything could have been done better?
Yeah, no, I'm not quite sure either, but yeah, definitely there are benefits to that messaging strategy, but it has its limits. And I think especially if you're a freshman mayor and, voters understand, they give you grace if you make some mistakes in your first days or you say, I don't have all the answers yet, but yeah. This is his strategy.
It is good that he's talking to the media at all. For a lot of that first 12 months, he didn't give any interviews. He didn't talk to the Tribune editorial board this time, but that's his privilege, and fair enough. But it is good that he's talking to the media, and I think he should admit mistakes. I think Chicagoans would like to see him do that. Everybody makes mistakes.
Were you surprised that we didn't get much of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable thing to ask. Nobody's perfect, and people appreciate honesty. And it did feel like, you know, as Alice was saying, every time there was any issue, he just repeated his achievements.
So,
people want more reflection from the mayor.
Well, and you had brought up earlier that if you're a progressive, perhaps you're quite happy with what he has done. And Alice, going back to you, he really is very proud of what he accomplished so far in, he says, only a year's time. What are some of those major accomplishments?
Yeah, I think, you know, early on when he kind of, you know, honeymoon period, wind at his back, he passed a series of legislative accomplishments such as abolishing the tipped sub-minimum wage, expanding Chicago's paid leave time ordinance to be one of the strongest in the city, and, you know, at the time, putting Bring Chicago Home on the ballot, although we know how that ended up. And
failed, by the way, if you somehow missed that.
But I don't know, in the middle, there obviously have just been a lot of headlines about the migrant crisis and, you know, the shot spotter situation that kind of, I think, you know, set back the optics a bit, so.
And no, let's go to you, Rima. What about, of course, he had worked previously for the Chicago Teachers Union. He was an activist for it, and now he has to negotiate a contract on behalf of CPS in this city with the union. What do you forecast for those conversations?
Yeah, it's a super important question because as you know, and as we've talked about on this program quite a bit, CPS is facing a nearly $400 million budget deficit starting July 1st. So that means that the district does not, as far as we understand, have a lot of money to play with. Those projections don't assume any, you know, major changes to the CTU's current contract.
They don't build in raises like CTU is asking for
exactly.
example.
And then there are a lot of proposals that kind of follow the pattern of the union in the past where they want to bring about actual change to how students experience schools. You know, they want to do things like find ways to provide housing for homeless students. These are proposals that likely require a lot of money. And so I think the mayor is probably in a tough spot where he's up against he's negotiating a contract. Essentially, his administration is negotiating a contract with the very organization that catapulted him into power, but he has limited resources. And I've heard people from different kind of ideological camps, if you will, say the same thing, which is the mayor is not in the position, his administration is not in a position to give the union everything that they want. But it can't be ignored that they have a friendly face in office. So we're still waiting to see what's going to happen. What I can say is that as far as we know, negotiations are going at a much friendlier, have a much friendlier tone than under Lightfoot or Rahm Emanuel. So.
Which isn't probably all that tough to do, but nonetheless significant.
Yes, exactly.
What else? You talked to him otherwise about education, and we'll get to the Springfield trip that he took and that the union took this week. But when you spoke with him about sort of years back reflection and future forecast, what did you speak about?
Yeah, so we were able to have a sit-down interview with him, and it was funny because, you know, kind of the outside experts I talked to were like, this is the one area that he has made some progress in fulfilling what he said he would do on the campaign trail, which was to invest in neighborhood schools, which means sending more city resources, more district resources to your neighborhood school that you can enroll in, that you're zoned for. And his administration has taken a couple of important steps to fulfill that promise. These are controversial steps. To be clear and to be sure, they've caused a lot of controversy, and so that's a commitment from the Board of Education to rethink the city's school choice system, which includes selective enrollment, your magnet schools, these schools that you apply to that are still public schools, and then the board has also changed the funding formula for how schools get funded, and so these are all things that actually have caused so much backlash that legislators in Springfield have filed bills to undo some of those. And I want to be clear also that there are plenty of people who are excited about these changes too. So, I think he reflected on this by saying, well, my administration, or I feel like I was charged to bring about this change. And, anytime I kind of asked him similarly about supporting migrant students or responding to that crisis, or about the backlash, he kind of placed the blame on Springfield. He said Springfield looks like they're trying to protect segregation in schools. They're not giving us enough funding, and that's why we haven't been able to potentially support migrant students as much as we can. So it was a bit of blaming others, I think.
And Ben, this is a perfect segue to bring you in, because those giving additional money, resources to neighborhood schools at what is perceived to be the expensive selective enrollment schools, as Rima noted, has been the subject of legislation in Springfield. Tell us about Brandon Johnson and sort of how he is perceived under the Capitol Dome.
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting because last year we saw Brandon Johnson come down shortly before he was sworn in as mayor. He gave a really great speech that I think a lot of progressives and a lot of Democrats in general really liked. And I think there was a lot of hope that Springfield would actually be able to work with him, because Springfield didn't really have a close relationship with Lori Lightfoot. Now, fast forward a year, there's been so much tension over the migrant situation, for example. Now the mayor and Chicago Teachers Union, they've been talking up a lot of their, in some ways, what they call demands to fund Chicago public schools more, to make some changes. And Springfield's been kind of resistant to everything they've been proposing from, Springfield's pushing a moratorium on these changes to selective enrollment schools that the Chicago Public School Board is currently considering. They're not really interested in the extra funding, at least at the moment, that the Chicago Teachers Union and Brandon Johnson also want. So they've kind of, over the last year, just soured in general on the mayor and kind of his wishes.
Why?
That's a great question. I think some of it may stem from his relationship with Governor Pritzker. I think Governor Pritzker really tries to have a strong relationship with certainly, the mayor of the biggest city in Illinois, but a lot of other Democrats and people in his party. He realizes the stakes for him in this, as he considers potentially running for higher office. He's trying to have a good relationship, but he's also not willing to see mistakes being made. And when there's been issues at migrant shelters, or there's threats to potentially having an unbalanced budget because of so many spending demands, you see the governor and Democrats in general just kind of push back on those, because they're very proud of the fiscal progress that we've made in Illinois in the last 5 years. And, as much as I think progressives really do want to see a lot of the things that Brandon Johnson has been pushing for, I think they kind of realize that some of that stuff right now is pie in the sky, especially in a tight budget year such as this one.
And so let's go to it then, because as has been touched on some, CPS, which again, still at the moment has a board whose members are appointed by the mayor, as well as actually the Chicago Teachers Union, in a rare case, it went for a joint day of action to Springfield. And so you had all these teachers talking about an increase in funding and $1 billion, Rima, that they say the district is owed. $1 billion. Where's that number come from?
So that number comes from what they call fulfilling adequacy so basically imagine a district being adequately funded by the state's definition under the main funding formula that is used to fund school districts across the state. And so that $1 billion number is actually the state's own estimation of, if we adequately funded you, we'd give you $1 billion more. In reality, my colleague Sammy reported on this, the state has been, with the exception of 2020, has been increasing funding for school districts across the state by about $350 million. CPS gets a large chunk of that increase. And given that rate, there was a report out by the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability that said they're not actually going to reach that deadline for another, I think it was another decade or two, 2034, that's right, when the original goal was 2027. So that's kind of the state of funding.
Ben, what was the reception like in Springfield for this mission trip?
Yeah, according to at least some Democrats that I talked to, and I think maybe Republicans even to an extent, I think they recognize what CPS and the CTU are asking for. They do realize that the $350 million funding increase that's going to public schools throughout the entire state each year is not enough to meet these goals that the state set, in law back in 2017. The problem is there's a lot of other priorities in state government. The Chicago Teachers Union is basically just one of many organizations that has come down to Springfield this year and every other year, basically, to ask for more funding for their priorities. So, you ask Governor Pritzker or other Democrats about this, they're going to tell you that we're totally open to increasing evidence-based funding for CPS for all schools in Illinois. But the question is, how do we get there? Right now, we don't have the revenue to do it. And despite being interested in actually making this increase, I think the question really just is, how do we actually get there between the revenue and being able to fund all the other priorities that other people in Illinois also want to have funded as well?
So, Chris, is this effective, these lobbying days and very public demands?
No, I don't think it is. I think most parents parents of kids in the Chicago public schools would want their teachers to be teaching their kids for the most part. And I think, that it's not effective.
Because expand on that. That was a subject of controversy
here,
right?
I think for one thing, it's getting very difficult to tell the difference between CPS and CTU and even the mayor. For a lot of people, they're all sort of melding into one entity, I think. And I think that's sort of, in Springfield, they're looking askance at that, and they're looking to the governor, I think, to be the adult in the room on this, as he has been with the migrant crisis and also with the Chicago Bears stadium. So you're seeing, I think it's correct, that you are seeing the governor sort of calm everything down and act more like a restraint on Chicago. But I do think that, a memo went out to the parents of CTU kids, and I think that people found that confusing because they didn't know what was going on and they didn't know why their teachers were all heading to Springfield to lobby. I think in most parents' minds, you should have lobbyists, but not the teachers who should be in the classroom teaching your kids on that day.
And that was the narrative that we heard, particularly from Republicans,
and
who
I
said
think the mayor,
they shouldn't have had a paid day off.
Yeah, and I think the mayor has got to say, I've got a new job now, and I represent the city, and I was elected, we all know, with a lot of CTU help, but I'm now separate. And I think he's got to come out and say that, so people and the governor and Springfield can appreciate that, he understands that difference.
And now, Ben, I want to go back to you, because as we're speaking about revenue, it's possible that legislators are only in Springfield for one more week. They have planned to adjourn by the 24th. How is the budget looking?
That's a great question, and I think we'd all like to see the answer to that. I do know that most lawmakers who aren't involved in the budget process, they haven't really seen the details yet. They've had several pretty extensive caucus meetings to work out some differences this week. Democrats on Tuesday, they caucused on the House side for over 4 hours to talk about budget issues. And there's some wariness among Democrats about some of these funding or revenue increases that Governor Pritzker's proposed. He's proposed some extra tax increases on businesses, some changes to what they can deduct from their losses, extra taxes on sports bettors in the casinos that house them. And I think a lot of Democrats are a little bit wary about this, and that has actually prompted the governor's office to tell state agencies, hey, you might need to actually watch out for $800 million less in funding this coming year. So I think at some point we're going to see a lot of Democrats are going to generally get on board with everything Governor Pritzker has proposed, but whether we actually meet that, right, exactly, and if we meet that self-imposed deadline, we'll have to see.
Now, Alice, back to you, because back in Chicago, pressure really growing to oust the boss of the CTA, Dorville Carter, with 19 members of the city council signing onto a resolution calling for change at the top. The question is, why is Mayor Johnson sticking with Carter?
Yeah, no, that's also a question I think a lot of people want the answer to. But yeah, it seems from both his messaging and the CTA's messaging that they're kind of digging their heels in and trying to counter the narrative by putting their statistics and stuff. Which I don't know if that's a winning strategy, because as we saw with the spike in crime under Lori Lightfoot, if you don't look at people's concerns head on and kind of deny that this is happening, that their fears or frustrations aren't valid, they get frustrated.
And so thus far, as you said, we haven't really heard from Johnson why he's sticking with Carter, or have we? answered?
I feel like multiple people reporters have tried to press him on it, but he has kind of stuck to the I don't discuss personnel issues publicly. I think that's inappropriate.
Well, now, someone that is for sure on her way out is State's Attorney Kim Foxx, and that's because she didn't run for re-election. But she is not leaving quietly per a policy that is not yet in place, but has been announced. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office would not prosecute any gun crimes if they had originated because police pulled over a driver for something that was not public safety related. So something just like a run-of-the-mill traffic stop. Now, why is she doing that, Chris? Now.
Well, I think she believes that those traffic stops have detrimental effects on Chicagoans of color, and I think that's a reasonable point. I also think those traffic stops do sometimes result in a lot of tension. They result in people dying, frankly. So I see those concerns, but it seems to me a state's attorney on the way out shouldn't be making that kind of drastic change, which is likely to be overturned by her successor anyway. And also, I think ultimately that's a police decision, and that, you know, it is a fact that these cars in Chicago that are pulled over sometimes have guns, and it has been an effective way, I think, for the police to get guns off the streets. And so I think for the prosecutor to say we'll just never prosecute those crimes is a mistake. I think the police have said that they want to refocus away from those sort of so-called pretextual stops. That's a good thing. But I think ultimately to say that in public, it just sort of removes any incentive to not have a gun in your car. And, you know, the reality of having a gun in your car is that you might use it. And that, you know, when shootings tend to be, you know, they have effects down the line. There's a shooting today, that leads to a shooting tomorrow. If you can get the gun out of the car in some instances, lives can be saved.
Well,
so it has to be, it's more nuanced than she's appreciating.
And this, of course, comes after the killing of Dexter Reed, which I think cannot be ignored there. But moving on, Alice, to something else regarding gun crimes. This is, of course, a city, as we noted, that does struggle with gun violence. And yet the Cook County Sheriff's Department has some pretty unsettling numbers that Illinois does not know if some 84,000 individuals that are deemed too dangerous to own guns still have them. How is this a problem?
I think the main problem is, you know, if you believe in enforcing, you know, gun control legislation, and you pass these laws such as like red flag laws to prevent, you know, past mass shootings we've seen, they're not effective if you don't follow up on them. And it is a huge number to be concerned about, yeah.
It's a huge number. Now, Rima, let's move on to you, because the campus protests, there aren't any longer encampments on higher education campuses here in the city of Chicago after police really struck down the tents in DePaul early Thursday morning. So this is sort of another timing question. After it had been there so long, why now?
Well, so it sounded like, you know, at DePaul, the administration and students there, it seemed like they couldn't come to some sort of agreement that we've kind of seen other administrations around the country, and actually in Chicago and at Northwestern, try to hash out. And so, and it sounds like administrators at DePaul said, oh, things are getting a little hairy. We're perceiving things to be too dangerous for our overall student community, and so we're going to file a complaint that we have students trespass, or that there are people trespassing. And so the police came in. You know, I wasn't personally out there. I did see some videos floating around on social media, some clashes between police and protesters. Police have said that the breakup was largely, you know, that there were not clashes, that it was peaceful. And, you know, I think that's also runs very counter to what happened at Northwestern, which was administration and protesters did kind of sit down and hash out an agreement, which is now going to be, you know, I think the administrators there are going to be the subjects of grilling in D.C. by congressional Republicans largely. So it's just interesting to see how these two universities in our city have kind of handled this differently.
And we'll all be watching that. I believe Thursday is when the president of Northwestern will be called before that congressional committee. That is all the time that we have for this evening. So much appreciation goes to Chris Jones, Alice Yin, Rima Amin, and Ben Cislinski. We're back, that is, to wrap things up right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family. The Polk Brothers Foundation. Additional support is provided by Tonight's presentation of Chicago Tonight, Week in Review, is made possible in part by Ann and Rich Carr, Francine and Dr. Anthony Brown, and the Mollenhauer Progressive Philanthropic Fund, in honor of Ida Mollenhauer, supporting quality journalism.
That is our show for this Friday night. Don't forget, you can get Chicago Tonight and the Week in Review streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and on our website, WTTW.com/news. Now for the Week in Review, I'm Amanda Vinicky. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a great night. You wanted to jump in
I do
there.
Think that, I do think the president of Northwestern deserves some credit for having arrived at that, at that deal. And I think it was he's a person of conscience, and I think he actually ended that protest in the best possible way. It's also true that not all of these protests have been the same. I was at the one at Columbia, New York. That was very, very disturbing. The one at Northwestern didn't feel as bad as that. The one at DePaul, I think, just got a little out of control. And I think that's probably why they went in and cleared it out today.
Now let's go to the MSI rebrand. It is now the Kenneth C. Griffin Museum of Science and Industry. People are really fired up about this.
I'm fired up about this.
Rima, why?
Because I'm just not going to call it that. It's like always a Sears Tower. It's never going to be Guaranteed Rate Field. It's just, that's
So
how
this
it
isn't
My
anything
personal
against Ken
opinion.
Griffin. It's just
No,
Chicago
it's just,
pride.
It is what it is. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, but Alice, a lot of people do. Okay.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm, and proud sponsor of programming that offers advice and strategies to enhance the physical and mental well-being of fellow legal practitioners in Illinois.